lawfare.
When did he ask Merrick Garland to go after someone? Trump sent a DM to Pam Bondi. This is unprecedented.
The Merrick Garland who sent the parental rights memo that basically demonized
and Biden asked him to do that
when did
Biden?
Board meetings.
I'm going to ask you a simple question. When did Biden ask him to do that?
Adam Mockler asked one question, evidence, and the conservative panel had none. I'm Brand Maya. This is the Brand Maya Show. The CNN panel started with the shutdown, Republicans and Democrats trading blame, but it did not stay there for long. The conversation turned to something much more serious. Donald Trump directly messaging his own Attorney General, Pam Bondi, naming people he wanted prosecuted, 2 of whom have already been indicted. Scott Jennings and Caroline Downey tried every angle to wave that away, comparisons to Biden, comparisons to Obama, anything except actually addressing what happened. Adam kept asking the same simple question, where is your evidence this isn't happening? And kept getting silence instead of an answer. If you are tired of watching people defend the indefensible with whataboutism instead of facts, hit subscribe because the Brand Maya Show is not letting this one slide. Let's get into exactly how this panel fell apart.
It is a stalemate. I think it's about which party has the most tolerance for political pain at the end of the day, because both are going to suffer in their districts across all of these states. But the fact is that the Democrats turned into a circus what should have been a simple housekeeping measure, which was extending the Biden levels of spending in a clean CR. And it was clean. It was very clean. But instead, they decided to die on the hill of extending, making into perpetuity a COVID-era subsidy. Are we in COVID, guys? We're no longer it's not the pandemic anymore, right?
Increasingly, you're hearing Republicans saying we need to fix the healthcare
part. You said that
this. Like they recognize it's a problem.
You said that Democrats are dying on this hill, but a lot of Republicans are climbing up the same hill right now. Marjorie Taylor Greene has been outspoken about it. Mike Johnson got confronted on C-SPAN the other day by a Republican. I don't know. I know I'm a lot younger than you, so I'm closer to like 5th grade government 101, but this takes compromise. If you have 53 Republicans and you can't get 7 Democrats to sign on, that means they're not compromising. There were 13 CRs passed under Biden because they let Republicans into the room and they said, listen, you guys can talk to us. We'll talk to you. We'll negotiate. In this case, Democrats are essentially being shut out, and Donald Trump is posting AI memes of Hakeem Jeffries with a sombrero. So if you want to talk about a circus,
it's a meme war.
It's reciprocal from the Democrats. Donald Trump is the president. He should have a
So let me just, real quick, Scott, let me play. This is Trump in 2019, back when he was president, okay? So he was in the White House, and he was the one trying to keep the government shut down until he got his border wall. And here's what he said.
We really have no choice but to build a powerful wall or steel barrier. If we don't get a fair deal from Congress, the government will either shut down on February 15th again, or I will use the powers afforded to me under the laws and the Constitution of the United States to address this emergency.
Wasn't the first time, wasn't the last time that it was Trump and Republicans who were saying, we won't open the government until we get what we want in terms of concessions.
Trump really values being seen as a peacemaker, and credit where credit is due. This ceasefire was amazing to see. I was tearing up at all of the videos of hostages being reunited with their families. I also think it's important to be very accurate about how we're reporting this. The peace deal that has been proposed has not been signed. The peace deal that Israel agrees to, the 20-point peace plan, Hamas is very likely to agree to for a few reasons. First of all, it necessitates the dismantling of all of their military arms. It doesn't seem like they're going down that direction, even though they should. It also necessitates them never returning to power as governance over civilians, and it doesn't seem like they're headed that way either. So I just think that Hamas has spent the past 24 hours executing people who dissent, people who are pro-Israel or pro-Palestinian Authority. I think we need to spend more time talking about phase 2 and the actual peace deal rather than some Nobel Peace Prize when that hasn't even been achieved.
Notice the pivot that happens right after this. The conversation moves from the shutdown and the ceasefire directly into a much bigger question, whether Congress still functions as an actual check on presidential power, or whether it has become what one panelist bluntly called ceremonial. That framing matters because everything that follows, the executive orders, the Pam Bondi DM, the loyalist appointments, all builds toward the same underlying question, not whether Trump is popular or unpopular in this moment, but whether the institutional guardrails that are supposed to separate the presidency from direct control over prosecutorial decisions are actually holding. That is the real subject of this panel, dressed up as a shutdown argument.
Now, I want to start with the Trump part of this, which is what Bannon notes in this piece, which is essentially that he's treating Congress just as like, a ceremonial thing that's there to just like sign off on his policies. And that is kind of how Congress is behaving in this moment. So I'm not surprised, I guess, I don't know if you are, that Trump feels like he can kind of do whatever he wants in this moment.
So I agree that Congress needs to rediscover its agency and actually start acting like Congress, start legislating, end the shutdown, all of that jazz. But I think it would be really silly to accuse Trump of being, again, this like unilateral executive when under the Biden administration, the Obama administrations, they maximized their mandate fully. We remember Obamacare was the hallmark achievement of Obama's term. We forget how extremely controversial, divisive that was at the time.
That was passed with a supermajority in Congress.
But the point is that he pushed it through.
I mean, that was
Trump
a
is ruling through
legislative
executive
accomplishment that was passed with. They needed 60 votes to get that done, and they got it done with 60 votes.
Biden instituted.
I don't think there's anything that they've gotten 60 votes.
Trump is ruling the executive order.
If you want to talk about rule by executive order, Biden issued a ton of executive
Donald Trump on
orders.
his first day issued a historic amount, and since then he has been subverting Congress. He appointed Elon Musk in a special position, and it seems like they were subverting the power of the purse the entire time. At the end of the day, Congress has been Donald Trump has been stomping on them, not even paying attention to them. He has absolutely been consolidating power by appointing loyalists into key positions across agencies, and then those agencies. I mean,
let's talk about who's setting
directly.
precedent
The president
here.
of the United States appointed people who support his agenda to place in the federal government?
Are you telling me that you're okay
Oh, my
with
goodness.
Donald Trump asking Pam Bondi directly? It was supposed to be a DM, and he
Come on.
accidentally posted it. Don't just come on now. This is
All presidents
unprecedented.
appoint their supporters and the people who support
Do they
their
ask
agenda
their
to federal
supporters to
agencies.
indict 3 people, and then two of those 3 people are then indicted?
They're members of Congress
this is
from their
dishonest.
party to pass their agenda.
This is
Whether
dishonest.
if you have the party of your party is in charge in Congress, they look to the president to set the agenda for the party. After all, in the elections, people who turn out to vote are typically voting.
So
for the
Biden never
presidential
weaponized
candidate.
his DOJ,
So-
and that's what you're saying. Biden never asked.
No, he absolutely did.
When did he ask
You want to
Merrick
talk
Garland?
about lawfare?
When did he ask Merrick Garland to go after someone? Trump sent a
Oh,
DM
wait.
to Pam
Wait
Bondi.
a minute,
This is
wait a minute.
unprecedented.
The Merrick Garland who sent the parental rights memo that basically demonized
and Biden
parents
asked him
that
to do that
protested at
when did
school
Biden?
board meetings.
I'm going to ask you a simple question. When did Biden ask him to do that?
Garland collaborated with Biden
When
to
did Biden
send that
directly
memo
ask him to do that?
weaponizing the FBI and law enforcement
Garland collaborated with Biden.
with the Biden administration. Yes.
Okay.
That was their
Garland
policy.
collaborated
I mean, it was
with
the
Biden.
administration's
And I think
policy.
that,
It absolutely
Adam's
was.
question, and it's a question I guess apparently this comes up on the show every other day, is where is the evidence that was directed by the White House? Where's the evidence that it was directed? And I'm going to broaden it, like not just the president, because you could argue that if you're going to compare apples to apples, the direction needs to come from the president, but from the White House. Where's the evidence of that?
Where's the evidence they disagreed with it? Is this not his administration's
disagreeing
policy?
with it is not a crime.
That's a totally different.
Is it not his?
That's a
Is it
totally
not his
different
policy?
thing.
Was it not his administration's policy?
Where is the evidence that?
Where is the evidence that he wasn't happy with his own
But hold on a
administration's
second,
policy?
Scott. I actually think that's a really important point, because whether it is agreement or disagreement, both of those things would be involving themselves in what's going on at DOJ in a way that most presidents don't, and that Donald Trump is. So whether or not they said do this or don't do that, both of those things would actually be off limits in a world in which DOJ
that's the
I don't
executive
agree
is allowed
with
to
that.
pursue.
That's what the executive
a
branch
world
is.
in which DOJ is
If Joe
allowed to
Biden
pursue the
was
rule of
mad
law.
about Merrick Garland
do
going
you
after
think-
ordinary parents, he could have put a stop
Scott,
to it. But I
do
think
you-
he loved
Do you
it.
think
I think
that
he
the
loved it.
president should be engaged one way or another, saying affirmatively or saying negatively? About what the DOJ is doing?
I have told you many times.
You
I
think
think it's
so?
fine for the president to express opinions about how his
He
administration
directly
operates.
asked her.
Okay.
I love
And I
watching
also
the
think it's
conservatives
fine for
duck
processes.
and dodge.
Listen,
No
is
answer.
that
not executive branch?
I think that this is super important, because Adam's making an important point. Trump said, you're not doing your job. In fact, he said something very similar just the other day. I mean, you're not doing your job. He called out 3 names. 2 of those people have been indicted. So that's more than just expressing an opinion. That was an order.
It is
to
extraordinarily
his Attorney General.
naive to believe that the Biden Department
We're
of
being
Justice
naive?
operated as some disembodied, floating,
But you have no
quasi-
example.
but see,
magical
no.
seahorse.
I love
out
You don't
of
think,
the
you don't
That
think
is
the
not the way
president
it
knows
works.
what his
Abby,
department's
Sister
Abby,
doing?
Sister
That's
Abby.
those are his
The-
departments.
All right, go ahead.
It's the executive
For me,
branch.
the problem is, especially Brother Scott, though, man, if one side is doing something immoral, all you're going to do is point out what the other side did that was
What is immoral?
There is no
What is immoral?
equivocation here.
Tell me
though.
what's immoral.
The violation of constitutional separation of sites and spheres.
Who set that precedent?
If
Who
one
set that
party is
precedent?
weaponizing, you say the
Okay,
other party
I
is
love
weaponizing.
watching the
so
conservatives
that we
on this
never
panel.
get beyond any kind of immorality. We just rationalize more immorality, concentration of power, and you end up.
I
in the
think
end,
that that's
for the-
fundamentally
for the
I mean, look,
fascism. That's how
I
you-
think
that's
that
how you end
there
up
are
with
quibbles
fascism.
about
No
whether
morality
or not
whatsoever.
you guys have proof of your allegations of weaponization, which I've heard none so far at this table.
2013,
but even
IRS
if
you did have
but even
weaponization of both,
you
so what? They're
do-
both wrong. They're both wrong.
Right,
They're both
exactly.
wrong.
So even if you do, wouldn't the correct response be to restore actual rule of law in those institutions as opposed to further weaponizing them?
Absolutely.
Are you sure that the people who've been indicted aren't guilty?
That's not the
Are you sure
point. That is not the point.
I didn't make any statements about their guilt or innocence.
But you seem to think it's a
Scott.
violation of the
But can
rule
you
of law for a
acknowledge
grand
who
jury to have
crossed the
indicted them.
Rubicon?
No,
Scott.
that's
That's what I
not what
wanna-
we're talking about here. We are talking about Donald Trump's role in directing his attorney general about who to prosecute. That's what we're talking
Who
about.
then has to go to a grand jury and present evidence and go through the process like everybody else in this
But
country.
the first prosecutor, Eric Siebert, didn't want to do it, so Trump
Okay.
forced him out. I love watching the
The grand
conservatives.
jury met.
Listen, I
They-
love
they
watching the
brought
conservatives
charges.
on this
I know you
panel
don't wanna
dodge
believe it,
and
but they
weave with
did.
zero evidence whatsoever of any weaponization. I've asked you this multiple times, and you have no evidence, yet Donald Trump tried to send Pam Bondi a DM. This should be embarrassing that you are defending the President of the United States as he is directly asking
I'm defending
All right.
a process of grand
Josh
juries that's
Rogan,
existed in this country for a very
I want to
long
just
time.
raise this one with you because one of the other things here in this journal story is that the business leaders are saying that they are afraid to speak out about Trump.
Totally.
I don't think anyone wants to suffer the consequences of any public comment whatsoever that might be interpreted as an excuse to go after them. This is the chief executive of the Partnership for New York City, a business group here in New York. The vibe is Trump is so powerful.
Yeah.
He's using the White House as a weapon. Business leaders are like, we'd rather just stay out of the fray.
Yeah, not just business leaders, academic institutions, law firms, think tanks, non-governmental organizations, you name it. The Trump administration has taken an unprecedented policy of extorting these institutions to toe the Trump political line, and that is the stuff of dictatorships and authoritarian regimes.
Let's break down what actually happened on this panel, because underneath the crosstalk was a serious argument, and the conservative side never answered it. The shutdown framing was the opening move, Democrats supposedly manufacturing a crisis over routine spending. That fell apart fast once it came out Republicans hold 53 Senate seats and couldn't find 7 Democrats to sign on, a sign of failed negotiation, not obstruction. Then came the 2019 Trump clip, Trump himself threatening to keep the government shut down until he got his wall. That undercuts the idea that shutdown brinkmanship is a uniquely Democratic tactic. But the real subject of this panel was executive power. Scott Jennings tried to flatten the comparison, arguing Obama and Biden also maximized their mandates, pointing to Obamacare. That comparison doesn't hold. Obamacare passed with 60 Senate votes through the actual legislative process. What Adam described is different in kind, a president allegedly directing the DOJ by name to prosecute specific people, 2 already indicted, after messaging his attorney general directly. That distinction is the whole debate, and Jennings kept sliding away from it, asking for proof Biden's DOJ was independent, instead of engaging with the specific claim on the table. Adam's response was the right one. Even granting both sides some influence, the answer is restoring independence to these institutions, not shrugging because both sides supposedly do it. That whataboutism is exactly how accountability erodes, and Adam named it directly. The closing point mattered too. Business leaders, universities, law firms, and nonprofits growing afraid to criticize the administration publicly. That's a documented chilling effect, not a talking point. And the comparison to Hungary, Turkey, and Russia was backed by specific institutional evidence, not speculation. By the end, the conservative panelists never produced the evidence Adam kept asking for, just comparisons and deflections. That silence was the answer. This is the Brand Maya Show, where we follow the facts all the way through. If this mattered to you, stay with us, because there's more coming.